Yes, guys, what's happening? And welcome back to the channel and welcome to tonight's live stream for the Chelsea versus Newcastle preview. And the game takes place at Stamford Bridge on Sunday lunchtime amid a backdrop of off-the-pitch issues for Chelsea and a rejuvenated Newcastle United, unbeaten in their last 9 games. Eddie Howe just picking up the Manager of the Month award for February. So certainly there on the up. And I'm delighted, as always, to be joined by George. Mate, thanks for coming, as always. Looking forward to getting stuck into things. Before we get into matters on the pitch, only really one thing's been dominating the headlines. Well, it's been really since the cup final, but certainly from yesterday. The club celebrating its 117th birthday. And Boris and his corrupt cronies giving us a great birthday present as a club and putting us under sanctions. Obviously, I think we expected it. If we're being honest with ourselves, it was coming. It had been coming since the cup final, since that statement went out about transferring most of the responsibilities to the trustees of the club. And then before the Luton game, Roman's definitely selling. And then from there on in, it's been a case of bids have been coming in. There was a deadline set for March 15th for all bids to come in, and then he was going to choose the next owner essentially. But the government have stepped in and put sanctions on the club. The sanctions themselves basically mean that, they're designed for Abramovich to make no money from Chelsea. But if they'd actually done their research, they would have realised that Roman hasn't made a penny from Chelsea for years and years. He's not in it for making money. He's in it because he loves the club. So Abramovich's not actually made money from Chelsea for a long time. But sanctions include, obviously, can't sell any club merchandise. The club shop has been closed. The bar's been closed. Chelsea cannot sell any more match day tickets other than the ones that have been sold already before yesterday. Travel to away games have been capped at £20,000. That's just some of them. I won't go into all of them. I don't want to bore you. George, your reaction to that news yesterday on the sanctions and kind of what it means for the club? I mean, obviously, do you agree with me? Kind of not unexpected, but the implications for the short term are quite severe.
Yeah, and I mean, if we don't get on the straight and narrow soon, you can imagine how much money the club is going to lose. That's my biggest worry. If you think of business-wise how much football clubs make, they actually make a loss in large circumstances. So things like ticket sales and merchandise are really the things that keep Chelsea and clubs alike afloat in the Premier League. So, and like we just discussed off air, it's not just about those implications for Chelsea as a football club. It's about those deeper things about, people losing their jobs, the fans being hurt because they're not able to go and watch their football team and support them on the terraces. And I just feel a bit... they were unexpected to me in terms of the severity of some of those sanctions, I have to say. I mean, when I was driving home yesterday, to then be told that 3 and Nike were potentially pulling out, and that, like you said, all tickets, are going to be postponed until further notice, and that only season ticket holders can go. I just thought, what good is that doing anyone? For those hard-working people who, turn up every week, they haven't done anything wrong. Yeah. I don't know why there's a holistic punishment going on at Chelsea Football Club and not just targeted towards Abramovich. If Abramovich has done anything that's, for whatever reason, aided, Russian military, or he's got money tied up in areas that are obviously working in combat, or, I don't know the ins and outs. I'm not a journalist. I'm not a reporter. So, and I want to put it on the record that I don't know enough about the situation with Abramovich, so I'm not going to say he's part of it or he's not part of it. But what I do think is, if they're going to punish someone, it should be Roman Abramovich.
100%. I look, no Chelsea fans are saying that Abramovich is a saint and he's made his money in perfectly legit way. Of course he hasn't. Like, that's well documented. The guy's been owner of this football club for the last 19 years. Where was your moral compass in the previous 19 years? All this information has been known. Nothing's new. You knew about this guy. You knew how he made his money. You knew that he had, ties to Vladimir Putin in the past. admittedly, for the last few years, that hasn't been the case. But, you know, I just feel that like now it's almost like, oh, we need to do something because there's a war going on. War, absolutely terrible situation, 100%. No one is saying anything otherwise. But I do feel that, you know, if you're going to, basically what you're saying is that Abramovich is basically, with this money, helping fund the war. Those are some outrageous accusations to make against someone without presenting any evidence whatsoever. You know, you cannot come out, I don't care if you're government, I don't care who you are, you cannot come out and make a claim like that, which is one of the worst things, you know, possible that you could have put against your name, and have absolutely zero evidence to back it up. I'm not saying the evidence doesn't exist, but if that evidence exists, please present it, because, you know, you're dragging someone's name through the mud. As we said, he's not a saint. And yes, you know, the sanctions have been coming and he should be punished. But as you touched on, mate, the biggest issue for me is why are innocent people being punished? Fans, hardworking staff. You know, these are hardworking people that work hard and to pay their money to the club, to buy the merchandise, to go to the games, enjoy themselves on a weekend. And it's a mental escape for people. You know, we've just been locked down for a long time. We couldn't go to games, and now, you know, we can't go to games again. It's not fair. It's not right. You know, that by all means punish the owner. Yes, don't involve everyone else in it. You know, don't do that. And for me, it's just like it's levels of hypocrisy that I really can't stand. You know, I don't want to get too political because it's not about that on this channel, and it's football. I don't think football and politics should be mixed together. And if they are going to be mixed, don't be selective about it. Be broad, cover everything, you know. But this government, you know, is corrupt to its core. It's like London itself has been laundering dirty Russian money, quote unquote, for years and years. You know, this Conservative Party has accepted donations from Russian oligarchs, etc., into the government. You know, come on, guys. You know, like we like this. What are we doing? Honestly, you know, I feel like we're making an example out of Chelsea Football Club, and it just seems to be that the way it's going at the moment. But I mean, obviously the club is up for sale. This is meant to supposedly, you know, put a sale through much quicker. George, it's kind of imperative now that this sale gets pushed through ASAP, really, because the longer these sanctions are in place, the more damaging it is for the club. And God knows what, obviously, as you touched on, 3 have suspended their sponsorship. So I don't know what we're going to wear on our shirts on Sunday. They don't want their logo on the shirts for the time being, and they don't want their logo around the ground or anything like that. So I don't know what's going to go on the shirts. That's kind of the least of our worries. Nike and Trivago have both said that they're sticking by the club, and when the new ownerships come in, you know, they're happy to continue. But how imperative now is it that we just get this sale done as soon as possible?
Well, there's the imperative is the key word. I mean, it's an absolute must that Chelsea resolve this as quickly and as efficiently as possible. At the moment, we're being dragged in the mud. The name of Chelsea Football Club's being tarnished as we speak. And yeah, I agree, mate. I think people are just making an example and jumping on the bandwagon of Chelsea are in the spotlight. Let's all hone in on Chelsea and punish them as much as possible. Whereas we've had this at other clubs for other reasons, and nothing's been done. And whatever happened to innocent until proven guilty? Like you said, you know, no evidence presented, and yet the sanctions are there, which doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And listen, it's ironic, really, isn't it, that we've done a full circle, that Roman Abramovich came in at a point where Chelsea were almost close to no longer existing, to now 19 years down the road, he's been sanctioned, and that Chelsea, worst case scenario, go into a serious hole. But again, I think people are panicking a bit much. We're in the heat in terms of the press at the moment, but the club will go on and we'll make it work. You sent me a hilarious text today, mate, about the whole. I wouldn't be surprised if we had to borrow jumpers for goalposts tomorrow.
Oh, mate, yeah, I'm surprised that no one's come round to seize my Chelsea shirts. You know, it's seriously, do you know what I mean? Take my flag down, take all my merchandise and burn it or something. You know, it's honestly, the witch hunt is ridiculous. But I just brought this up on screen here. I think it's a great tweet. Chelsea in the dock now, but Premier League shouldn't be allowed to hide. Remember, Man City went from Thailand's human rights abusing former PM to the UAE, and just months ago, Newcastle said to Saudi Arabia, sold to Saudi Arabia as it waged war on the Yemen. And remember the arms dealers at Portsmouth. So, you know, it comes back to it, George, doesn't it? That it's fine. We're all for, you know, whether it affects our club or not, we're all for getting quote unquote dirty money out of the game, or people linked to hideous, you know, acts, etc., against human rights, waging war, etc. We're okay with that, but do it evenly across the board. Don't make an example out of one club and then welcome with open arms the Saudi Arabian regime that is waging war on the Yemen, you know, genocide, etc. And you're fast tracking that bid through so it can go through. You know, this has got to be applied across the board, hasn't it? Because otherwise it's just not fair and it's hypocrisy.
But it's classic journalism, isn't it? It's topical because Roman Abramovich is a Russian owner and everything's about Russia and Ukraine currently. And Chelsea are the most successful club by definition of the last 15, 20 years. So there's going to be this hate culture. It was already there about people hating Chelsea because they're jealous. And now because something's come to light that possibly tarnishes Chelsea, everyone's on it. You know, journalists, media, fans of other clubs. As soon as anything's, you know, identified with Russian owner and Ukraine and Russia going to war, and there's been links from Roman Abramovich to Putin, obviously it's a hot topic and everyone wants a piece of the action. So it's, you know, it's something that we're used to, being a hated club, but now it's just an easy excuse for journalists and the like to make Chelsea, you know, mainstream news for the next however many days and weeks.
Mate, what I was going to say was, question for you is that, like, obviously, you know, Chelsea are being made an example of now, but do you think that, you know, other clubs, the same must apply to them as well? You know, don't just, you know, make an example out of one club because it suits the political agenda and the political landscape at the moment with what's going on. The fact of the matter is that, as it says up here, Man City's owners, Newcastle, public-backed Saudi Arabian fund, you know, these are two other clubs in this very country. Why is that being overlooked? Do you think that, you know, we're going to tackle this issue? It's not just making an example out of one to suit a political agenda. It's, as a Premier League, as a country, we're stamping this sort of ownership out.
Yeah, and we completely agree with it. We're not coming on here, and
no,
I think people have got this perception that Chelsea fans are really upset, and they're saying, you know, we're almost saying why us? But honestly, if Chelsea have done something wrong, and you know, a person in charge of our club who has tied all those assets in as being found guilty, by all means, bring the point deduction in, bring the cancellations of sponsors and all the rest of it. We'll just have to accept it. But like you said, mate, it can't be one rule for one and another rule for others. And, you know, there's plenty of other monopoly power players in the Premier League that have got away with other stuff. Okay, maybe this topic is because it's current and it's more severe because it's to do with, you know, a declaration of war. It's perhaps highlighted, but it doesn't matter the severity of the situation. The bottom line is, if there's some wrongdoing in any form of a club, of how a business is run, that club should be punished. And again, like, you know, I think we're just going to have to, it's going to be very, very eventful to see what happens in the coming weeks and days. But bringing it back to, you know, the original point where how imperative it is that we get this resolved, it is, because we're losing money by the minute.
No, we certainly are. And, you know, it's just the fact. I don't want to spend too long on this because, like, it's going to go on for a while. And, you know, like, we could talk about this all day. But the fact of the matter is that this is going to be short-term pain for the next week or two. But Chelsea will recover. Chelsea will be all right. You know, we're not going to go bust. We're not going to go into administration. We'll still be a successful football club. Someone else will buy us. Yes, it will be different. Will there be an owner like Roman? Absolutely not. But the club moves forward. It was here before. It was here with him, and it will be here afterwards. And it will continue to be successful. But that's the most important thing to remember. But what I do, and I agree with RD in the chat here, is what makes me angry and annoyed is everyone attacking the club as if, like, Roman is a spokesperson for the club. Yes, he's the owner, but he doesn't represent the fans' views or the people that works there's views. You know, he's just one part of it. He's in charge, quote unquote, but he hasn't overseen, day-to-day running of the club for a long, long time. He's one of those guys that just sits back and lets everyone get on with it. So, I mean, George, you did touch on it, mate. And last thing on this, it's so utterly predictable, but journalists writing articles of just like tarnishing Chelsea, should be a points deduction, we should feel guilty about the trophies we've won under this ownership. It's just so utterly predictable, isn't it? Yeah, it's still so disappointing to see that this rubbish gets published and people are actually paid to write this.
Well, it's an easy cop-out. And in fairness, they wouldn't be doing their job if they didn't hone on it. I mean, we're on a podcast now talking about it. We wouldn't be doing our job if we were just talking about the Newcastle preview. I mean, we have to touch on trending topics, and that's what gets the clicks and everything else. But I also completely agree with. I don't think it's right that we're singing his name in the stands, and journalists and everyone have the right to, say that. But again, we don't want to be umbrellaed under, that's every fan that loves Roman Abramovich. I mean, my own brother is completely against Roman Abramovich and says good riddance. Don't want him at the club.
There's a section of Chelsea fans that feel that way, but just on the chanting, I feel that fans should be able to chant, what they wish to chant, obviously within reason, of course. Absolutely, at Burnley, it was a small minority, 100% wrong to chant his name at that moment during the tribute for Ukraine. Absolutely wrong. But at the same point, is chanting Roman Abramovich's name during a match, is that any worse than Liverpool fans chanting about the Munich air disaster from against Man United fans? There's examples after example, and football, it becomes very tribal, etc. And what is important to remember is that we aren't chanting Roman Abramovich's name in regards to any links. No Chelsea fan is pro-Putin. No Chelsea fan is pro-war, pro what's going on. We're chanting his name as a thank you and as a celebration for what he's done for this football club. But people just don't seem to realise that. And they seem to just lump us all into one and brand the club and the fans as pro-Putin and as if Chelsea's somehow funding the war, which is just creating a ridiculous narrative, which is, as a fan, is really disappointing to see.
Yeah, and unfortunately, all clubs have fans who are idiots or fans that, whatever, wrong timing. But I mean, come on, like you said, it's more, and again, it's more of a stand of saying that, we don't mind being hated by everyone else because we're so used to it. Yes, completely wrong timing to chant the name, but it's more of a, like you said, more of a gratitude for what he's done on purely footballing terms. And that's what people are finding difficult to distinguish between. You can have an owner who, okay, whatever, dirty Russian money, whatever you want to call it, he still had his best interests of Chelsea 19 years ago when he first joined, and he has changed this club forever, regardless of whatever happens to Chelsea from this day forward. We've had our best ever period of history, and how can you not thank an owner for what he's done, considering if you look at all the other big clubs and how, look at the Cronkies and things like that, without like how bad those owners are.
And the Glazers and stuff. Like Arsenal and Man United, they hate their owners. We've never had to experience hating our owners and wanting them out. So that's going to be another interesting chapter to see what these next owners are actually like as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I mean, I'm scared, but I guess this day had to come one way or another. It's a shame that it's come to light the way it has, but he couldn't go on forever. And let's just hope that the next owners who come in have even half the attitude that Abramovich had in terms of, staying in the background, not giving public interviews and just helping the club.
Yeah, no, 100%. Lastly on this, Matt, I thought this is just quite an interesting point as well. And obviously it's a wider conversation to have and about society in general as well. Billionaires are not heroes, far from it. Sadly, we've reached a point in professional sport where they've become necessary to exist as a top level club, for sure. The fact obscene wealth allows you to purchase hearts and minds too says a lot about the state of modern society, not just football. And I think that's a fair point. We allow these people to have a hold of our emotions almost as well. I mean, I think as society, that does also begs a wider question, doesn't it? Above football, how are we reaching this point that, billionaires are essential in essence to be successful at the top end of sport.
Well, and this is why that a lot of people that hate Chelsea are very anti Roman Abramovich, because he changed the whole model of Premier League football.
Yeah.
I mean, he came in, and the amount of money we were spending at the time was astronomical, and it changed the complexities of it. Basically, completely changed the level playing field that was there, to then everyone else having to raise their game. And without Abramovich, I don't think there are the monopolies in football today with the likes of City. I mean, I know United were quite big anyway in terms of money, but he's just taken it to another level in terms of inflated prices of players and being money hungry and player hungry, and obviously for the better for us, because he's changed the club and the attitude that we have from being a attractive, sexy kind of football team that win the odd cup to now being officially the best team in the world.
Yeah.
But I think that comes with a tarnished brush from a lot of haters of Roman Abramovich, because he changed the level playing field for the worse in terms of the levelling out in the Premier League, that you've just got those big players at the top and everyone else playing catch up.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I think, obviously, a lot of rival fans, as you'd expect, and a lot of journalists, as you would expect, are very quick to jump on the bandwagon and criticise Chelsea. But if a lot of fans actually dug deeper and looked into their own owners, as we said, billionaires are not squeaky clean. You'll very rarely find one that is absolutely 100% legit. You don't amass that amount of wealth without being exploitative or being part of something potentially slightly dodgy. So, people that are throwing stones at Chelsea, throwing shade at Chelsea, have a look at who owns your club. And if you dug deep into it, you probably find that, there's the same issues. Perhaps not in links to Vladimir Putin, but in certainly links to other things. So, it's rival fans should look a lot closer to home as well, because Chelsea aren't the only club with a owner who's amassed vast wealth through slightly dodgy dealings. But I mean, George, it's come out sort of in the last hour or so that now some of Chelsea's credit cards have been temporarily suspended. And this made me laugh, a little line from The Athletic, that as a result of Chelsea's credit cards being temporarily suspended, it's meant they have currently been left unable to buy fuel for the team bus. Now, obviously, I don't think that's going to be a problem. I'm sure Tuchel is able to put 50 quid in the fucking bus and get us to the ground. I don't think that's going to be a problem. But just little things like that. If you don't laugh, you'll cry about these things, really. But I mean, it's just another example. What you've had your credit cards suspended. So I mean, what good's that doing? I mean, honestly.
Lush whip round on the team bus.
Yeah. Mason, chuck a tenner in, can you? We need to get to the ground tomorrow. I mean, seriously, what is going on here? Honestly, we're freezing credit cards. What are we doing? Seriously, the club wants to be. We're selling the club. We're trying to accelerate the sale of the club. We're in the process of doing that. So. Why come in now with the sanctions? The sanctions, if you were going to sanction us, should have brought that in months ago. That should have been in weeks ago, really. Rather than being 3/4 of the way through the selling process. But it is what it is. This is going to rumble on. I don't want to spend any more time on it, mate. Let's move into matters about the game itself. I want to start with Newcastle first, they. Obviously, we beat them 3-0 in the reverse fixture. A lot's changed since then. Steve Bruce no longer at the club. Takeover's gone through. Vast expense in January. Bought some good players in the likes of Bruno Guimaraes, Kieran Trippier. Eddie Howe has picked up the manager of the month award for February. And Newcastle are unbeaten in their last 9 Premier League games. They've moved away from the foot of the table, and they're more than likely going to stay up now, barring an absolute disaster. George, what have you made of the turnaround there? I know you're a big fan of Eddie Howe. Has this surprised you, how he's done and how he's kind of rejuvenated that side and pushed them up the table towards safety?
It surprised me in the manner and how quickly he's managed to get, that 9-match unbeaten run together, because I didn't think it would be as dominant as that. I thought he would get, a win here and there. But absolutely no doubts in my mind about the quality that Eddie Howe and the ability for him to keep Newcastle in the Premier League. Outstanding manager. I wanted him to be the England manager, I think, when Roy Hodgson left. I also think that he's due a big job. This is a big job, but I mean, for one of the so-called big 6 clubs, I think he's more than capable. Just love the guy. I think he's just a brilliant man manager, brilliant coach. Things he did at Bournemouth, just unheard of, and climbing them up the tables, getting them from nothing to and playing decent football as well. Just such a calm character, not the loudest, but just very collected in his way. Very, very Tuchel-like in the way he presents himself in the press conferences as well. But yeah, Newcastle, I'm not going to say, at the time when they had Steve Bruce in charge, I did fear for them. But he's turned it around. He's brought in some key players in key areas. And, Newcastle are such a big club. I didn't want them to go down because I think they're too big a club to go down. And they're safe now. But it's more about the exciting future for Newcastle and how they attack another window and how they move forward from here. But at the moment, they're on a fantastic run, and it's not going to be an easy game for us.
No, mate, it's certainly not. And you mentioned that Eddie Howe kind of calm, a little bit like Thomas Tuchel, with all the uproar that's going on off the pitch. I think we're so lucky to have someone like Thomas Tuchel in charge. Speaks so honestly, he's so open. Just says it how it is, says what he's feeling. He's been an absolute credit to himself and to the club in this difficult time off the pitch. And I don't think we could have wished for anyone better to handle the situation than Thomas Tuchel. How impressed have you been with how he's handled the recent issues off the pitch?
Well, yeah, it must be incredibly tiring because he's asked this question every single press conference after every match, before every match, and he just wants to focus on the football. The bottom line is he's an employee of the football club. He's not. Again, he may be a so-called spokesman for the fans, if you like, but he's being managed by people upstairs who he probably has no idea and probably as much news and as information as we do in terms of what's going on up there. And, he just wants to concentrate on the football and not let him or the players get distracted. And it's incredibly difficult to work on his job when all that journalists are asking, they're not even caring about the performances and the results. All they care about is the future of Chelsea Football Club, the future of him, players, what's going to happen to the club. He doesn't know. So stop asking the questions. And it's easy. I think there was a little moment early on in a press conference at the beginning of last week where he got a little bit emotional and said, stop asking the questions. But very rarely do we see that from him. And he's just trying to deflect all of these questions because he's just being honest. He cannot answer them. He does not know anything about what's going on. So I think fair play to him.
Man, he just loves this football club. He really is one of us. He's just grateful to be here. And he said a great quote after the game last night. Saying as long as we've got enough shirts and a bus to get there, we'll be there. And he's such a great guy, and we're so lucky to have him. That was Texas Blue. Can't wait to see Newcastle go through. Oh yeah, mate. I wouldn't hold. That's not going to happen. Absolutely no chance. UK's got a large arms deal with Saudi Arabia, supplies a lot of weapons to and from. So yeah, they're never going to sanction anything to do with Saudi Arabia in a million years. So yeah, that unfortunately that's not going to happen. But yeah, we can always hope. George, moving on to ourselves, that's 7 goals in the last 2 games. We've been pretty goal shy for a large part of this season and last season. But 7 goals in the last 2 games. I know it's against Burnley and Norwich, but you still got to score the goals against what's in front of you. Have you been impressed with the fact that we've actually managed to put the ball in the net much more often than has been the case in recent months and large parts of this season?
Well, the potential's always been there, so I'm not particularly surprised by it. I just think we were in a bit of a rut where I think even Thomas Tuchel would probably come out and say that he didn't know what his best front three was. Probably still doesn't. I mean, we know form-wise what our best three is at the moment, but only going on the back of maybe 4 or 5 games. So, the Lukaku situation, bringing him in, we had to play him, we had to start him because he was our main man. Didn't work out. Then we lost the fullbacks, which we've documented loads of times affects the way we play. It's just been a bit stagnated, and we've had a lot of forwards in very similar areas who they're not reaching the numbers in any season that they've been at the club where you would expect a lot of goals. But Chelsea have never been particularly like a City or a Liverpool that were very gung-ho and full of goals. We've always been set as a team that sets their foundation at the back and likes to hold a lead. not too expansive. You know, we know all these things about Chelsea. We're not the most exciting on the eye to watch, but we're efficient. We're probably the most efficient side, and we were for a large part of the season. And it's nice that it's coming to play at the tail end just when it is important. You know, we've got a lot of big competitions coming up. We're still in the Champions League. We're still in the FA Cup in the late stages. So despite everything going, you know, what's happening off the pitch, it seems like things are turning a corner on the pitch in a positive light.
Mate, that's our tagline at the moment: chaos and trophies, mate. That's what we do. You know, it's a shame that the Amazon Prime cameras aren't following us for an all or nothing this season, because it would have been unbelievable viewing. I know the Arsenal one's going to be good, but if they'd been following us this season with everything that's been going on,
mate, they need
it would have been even better. But yeah, things are clicking at the top end of the pitch as well. More goals coming. Form seems to be picking up as well. You know, unbeaten in our last 3 games, the FA Cup, the last 2 league games. Arguably, the Carabao Cup was a draw as well. So, you know, we are on a half decent run. The performances seem to be looking a little bit better as well. I mean, last night against Norwich, we saw Kai Havertz and Mason Mount outstanding on the night, but the link-up looked really good as well. Do you think there's a potential for a promising partnership to be blossoming in there, George? Because both top players linked up well last night. Is this something that could be really good going forward for Chelsea if they can continue to link up like this?
Yeah, and Mason Mount had a point to prove last night, and he did so. Fantastic finish for the goal. Kai Havertz seems to be banging form, keep getting goals, and you know, I think the 3 that started is our best 3 that we've got at the moment presently. And
not Timo Werner, of course not.
Well, no, maybe not Timo Werner, but I think
those 2 definitely.
Yeah, those 2 definitely. And we have the ability with all the players we have in the top end of the pitch, and that's Timo Werner included. All of those players can contribute in their own way, but it's just finding the right balance of who can link up well together. And we certainly saw that with Mount and Havertz last night. It was really nice to see some link-up play between those 2. And that's all you want to see as fans, you know, just a bit of team collaboration, because it's been very heavily focused on one man who wears that number 9 shirt, but you look at the players around us in those options in the front 3. We've got a lot of players that can be interchangeable and can do different jobs and play different sides. We're very versatile in that way, unlike other sides. So if it does click, I don't think we are that far away at all. I really, really don't.
No, we're not as we're a reasonable distance away still. We're still, you know, feel a goal scorer is needed. I know we've got Lukaku, but he's not working at the moment. If we can get it working and he can bang the goals in like we've seen over his career, then for sure we're not far away at all. But yeah, there's just still a few little bits that are missing. But we touched on it. You know, Reece James, big blow, injured. I'm not sure if I've spoken to you about it. I can't remember. But obviously, we have. You know, That's obviously a big loss. 2 goals in the reverse fixture up at St James's Park, and we just got him back, and it's a real shame. Azpilicueta went off at half-time last night. Thought he was injured. He actually wasn't. He had stomach cramps, was feeling a bit ill, so he came off. Hopefully he'll be all right for Sunday. Pulisic, I think, was ill also, so not sure if he's going to be back or not, and whether Marcos Alonso is going to be back either. But, I mean, George, Sunday, we're back at Stamford Bridge. First game at the Bridge since the sanctions. What do you think the atmosphere is going to be like there? It's going to be interesting. It's quite ironic that, you know, sanctioned Chelsea are welcoming Saudi-backed Newcastle. You couldn't really make it up, could you? For the first home game with the sanctions and who's coming to town. But in terms of what's going to be on the shirt, I don't know if it's just going to be a plain shirt with just the tick, the badge, and the club badge. I'll just make sure I don't put that 3 logo in view. Fuck them. And I don't know if it's going to be just a plain shirt. Thomas Tuchel in the press is saying that, you know, why not put a message of peace on the shirt, like, because that can never be wrong. I believe Chelsea are in dialogue with the government about whether we can do that or not. I don't know if that's going to be allowed or not. Otherwise, I presume it'll just be a plain shirt. It's not really that exciting.
It's going to be a trip to Sports Direct for the squad tomorrow.
Yeah, it is, mate. You're going to have to pay per letter. But Thiago Silva might have to get rid of the T and the dot and just have silver on the back so he can afford it.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, definitely. It's going to be very, very odd. And is it? Am I right in thinking that it's the sanction as well
Sorry. No, because any tickets that have been sold prior to the club being placed under sanction can be fulfilled. So yeah, we're fine for the next 2 home games. So this one and Brentford. I think there's not going to be many fans at Middlesbrough away. I know they went on sale to season ticket holders before they were going to general members. So there'll be a few fans at Middlesbrough. I mean, ironically, if this is not sorted out, we could have a point where Chelsea, if they get to the semi-finals, the opposing side has virtually got all of Wembley.
Well, yeah, and that's what's just so depressing, isn't it? And even like Champions League and stuff like that, the big magical nights at Stamford Bridge, it is such a shame because there will be an immense support tomorrow at Stamford Bridge.
Oh, it'll be absolutely massive. It really will be. But yeah, I mean, mate, let's get into the starting 11 then. Obviously I've got it up as a back 5. We went with the back 5 last night. I mean, you expecting the back 5 to remain in place? It seems to be tried and tested. It seems to be what Thomas Tuchel likes to go with. Are you expecting back 5, or do you think there could be maybe a back 4?
No, I think back 5 again. I don't see him again. No need to change what's working, unless, like you said, unless there's a injury pre-match or there's a concern. Looking ahead, I think he plays the back 5.
Yeah, I would agree, mate. And obviously in goal, Edouard Mendy, the undisputed number 1. No, I mean, there's not really much of a conversation to be had on that, to be honest, other than, he goes between the sticks. Back 3, George, we saw Antonio Rudiger rested last night. He's played the most minutes for Chelsea out of anyone this season. So to give him a rest against Norwich was a good idea. You'd fully expect him to come in. You'd expect Thiago Silva to play again. If he's fit, he always seems to play. We saw Christensen and Chalobah play last night against Norwich. For you, Rudiger and Silva obviously make up 2 of the 3. Is it going to be Christensen or Chalobah for the last spot? Both were good last night. Chalobah scored. Yes, he gave away a penalty, and Christensen was looking pretty good as well. Who would you go with for that 3rd spot, presuming you're obviously in agreement that Rudiger and Thiago Silva will both play?
Yeah, I think Rudiger and Silva will both play. It was a good idea to rest Rudiger because this is going to be a tough test, make no mistakes about it.
Yeah.
For the last selection in the centre back, I'd probably go with Chalobah just because he scored. Keep that momentum going. I know it's not his focus to score goals, but I think he played well enough. The penalty was a bit weird one, wasn't it? I don't know why he moved his arm actually towards it. Bit of a freak kind of body movement there. I don't know why he did that. But for me, I think he just gets the nod ahead of him, Christensen.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only one that's up for debate. And I would have no issues if Christensen did start over Chalobah. It's like either or I'm happy with. But I probably would just go with Chalobah for this one. Moving into the fullbacks then, George. Starting at right wing back, no Reece James. We saw Ruben Loftus-Cheek play the second half as right wing back last night. Did okay. Obviously not his natural position, but against Norwich, don't offer too much going forward. So, kind of get away with it. Azpilicueta, I don't know. I've been looking through the press conference. I can't see anything on any injury updates, really. I presume that Azpilicueta is fit. It was stomach cramps. He was feeling a little bit unwell. I'd imagine he'd be okay for Sunday. So presuming he's okay, like he obviously slots in there with Reece James out. It's also Callum Hudson-Odoi out as well. If Azpilicueta is not fit, who would you stick for argument's sake in that right wing back? Because it's a bit of a problem, isn't it?
I'd probably just shift out Chalobah on the right and then put Christensen in the middle. I think that's
could try that. Yeah. I guess there's ways around it. I mean, you wouldn't see Ruben starting there, and I suppose in an emergency, Christian Pulisic could go there. But I think Aspie, if he's fit. There's no word on the left-hand side. We've seen Sal Niguez play left wing-back for the last 2 Premier League games. Marcos Alonso has been unwell. I think it was COVID. I'm not sure if he's fully fit again. George, if Alonso's not fit, are you happy to see Sal Niguez continue for a 3rd game there? What have you made of his 2 appearances against Burnley and Norwich playing as a left wing-back?
Well, nothing spectacular, but we are winning games with him playing that position, so it's not a bad option. I actually think he will play ahead of Alonso. I just don't think he'll risk Alonso bearing in mind whether it's COVID or whether he's not feeling too well, I think it's quite a big, tough game to come straight back into a starting lineup. I think, and on the back of wins, I think you again, no need to really change it. So I think
I'll put it as a Saul / Alonso there. Slightly on the fence there, but is what it is. We'll pop that in. George, moving into the midfield pivot, we saw Kovacic and Jorginho start against Norwich. Kante came off the bench, played about 10 minutes. He was fantastic, looked really lively. Kovacic is our most important player in midfield. Thought he was really good again last night. The way he picks the ball up, the way he drives at the back line, the way he can pick a pass out, etc., make things happen. Are you fully expecting N'Golo Kante to come back into the side and Kovacic to continue? Is that the two you'd go with, or do you think Jorginho keeps his place? Do you think we maybe see Loftus-Cheek? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think Kovacic has to play, as we know, probably been our best player of the season so far. And then it's very similar to the kind of the pairing at the back, isn't it? It's either or. I wouldn't mind seeing Jorginho again. I'd obviously prefer to play Kante, but we both said last time that if Kante's fit, he plays, and then he didn't play. We played Jorginho and still won the game anyway. So it's either or for me.
Yeah, I think it will be Kante based on the fact that he didn't really play very many minutes against Norwich. So I probably expect those two to continue. Ruben, I think will come off from the bench probably. George, moving into the front three then. I'll start on the right-hand side. Mason Mount, not been in the best of form for the last few weeks. Those two big misses in the cup final, struggling to find his form from earlier in the season. But boy, did he deliver against Norwich on last night. So you would fully expect him to retain his place on that right-hand side. And it was a welcome return to form, wasn't it?
Yeah, we love Mason, and for me, as people well know on the channel, he's one of the first names on the team sheet for me. Yes, Warrant, I give Warrant that he shouldn't be in that starting lineup due to recent form, but I think he'll play himself back into form, and he had a good enough performance against Norwich last night to warrant starting this one.
Yeah, no, for sure. What's this? Texas Blue in the chat. It's maximum fit for Newcastle. Do you know what? I'm not sure. I haven't seen the Newcastle team use. There's a chance. I think he'll be in the squad. I don't know if he's fit to start. Kante got to start and need to break up Newcastle. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. George, moving to the left-hand side then. We're unsure if Pulisic is going to be fully fit after illness. I would probably expect Tuchel's quite cautious, really. And with the games coming up, we've got other options there. I'd be surprised if Pulisic started this game. I'd expect him to feature from the bench. Timo Werner was absolutely awful against Norwich. I don't know what he was doing. It's a great opportunity for him. The guy's not making efforts with his runs. He's pulling out of 50-50s. He was awful. So as far as I'm concerned, he doesn't even come into my thinking anymore when I'm picking a Chelsea side. Left-hand side, George, Hakim Ziyech for you. Obviously, Callum Hudson-Odoi injured as well. Pulisic, I would expect to start on the bench given he's been ill. It's been a weird one, though. Ziyech was balling and then picked up an injury against Lille, and he's struggled to get back into the side, even though he's been fit for the last 2 weeks. Unused sub on the bench against Burnley and unused sub on the bench against Norwich. Would you expect him to come back into the lineup? And it just goes to show how much of a momentum game football is. 1 minute you're shit hot, you pick up an injury, someone else plays well, you can't get back in.
Well, yeah, because you can't emulate the pace of a match. As much as you practice in training, you just can't. And he is very frail. He's a frail, shape and everything else. He's very Robin-like. He just reminds me of Iron Robin so much. But if he's fit, he plays. If not, I would probably, like you, I'd probably go Pulisic if he's feeling okay. But again, I think both offer decent qualities, and it's a case of either or. But let's hope Ziyech gets back to that form that he had prior injury.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the number 9 slot, it's kind of obvious, really. Kai Havertz is banging form at the moment. 5 goals in the league this season, 3 goals in his last 2 games. And this last month, he seems to have really stepped up and he's doing really well. He's linking up play very nicely. He's making assists. He's involved with everything. He's great in the air. His finishing seems to have improved. He's added goals to his game. And in recent weeks, mate, he really has looked like a complete number 9.
I think he just really enjoys playing up there with that lack of responsibility to do almost like the hard graft. He can drift out to the left or right. He likes being in the middle and linking up and just being kind of, sniffing around the 6-yard box, trying to, get loose balls in and everything else. I just think he almost enjoys that element of the game in just playing inside that box, that opposition box, whereas he doesn't necessarily like all the running and staying disciplined in an area. So I think it really suits him.
Yeah, no, I would agree, mate. And I think that link up with Havertz and Mount, particularly last night, was really promising. Hopefully that can continue. Obviously, George, you'd expect Havertz to play. Do you think there's any chance that Lukaku could start? I know Havertz is banging form. We've got a lot of games coming up, but I would expect Havertz to play this one, and perhaps Lukaku might be more likely to start against Lille, given we've got a 2-goal lead in that one. And I probably fully expect him to play against Middlesbrough in the Cup as well. So, I mean, but on Lukaku as well, mate, very briefly before we wrap up, what do you think this means for him now? Because obviously, bought in is the big signing under Roman. Roman's selling. I think with the uncertainty around the club now, there doesn't seem to be as much pressure externally or from above, if there was any, to actually play him. And he's found himself out of favour now. And, I don't know what the financial situation at the club is. I don't know what the finances of the new owners are going to be. It's uncertain times for him, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but this is where his character and his devotion to Chelsea is going to be tested. He's had all this talk about he's wanted to come back, and after the interview saying that he's going to prove himself on the pitch. Well, stop talking and start doing. And at the moment, he's got to be honest with himself. He's not been good enough to get in that starting team, but he's got to. All great players will take that on the chin, get their head down, work hard, and he's. I mean, I don't think he's got the quality personally, but I know people think he is a quality striker, and therefore, if he can emulate what he did, certainly for Inter Milan, then, and I'm sure he's got the confidence too, and he believes in his own ability that he should be in that Chelsea starting 11, and he needs to prove it. So take it with a pinch of salt, but it is uncertain times, but he's just got to keep going.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing. He's got to keep going. And when we get to the summer, we'll have to see what happens with his future and other key players as well. But certainly, Kai Havertz got that number 9 shirt locked down. But as I touched on, in the next week or so, Lille and Middlesbrough, there's going to be opportunities for Lukaku to get a large amount of minutes, and he has to take those opportunities and show that he can be the man at Chelsea. But yeah, that's obviously our lineup. That pretty much rounds out the preview. George, one last thing before we go, mate. A score prediction for Sunday. It's going to be a tough one.
Oh, I got my 3-1 right. I'll just get that on record. Got that right.
We had to score 3 goals, didn't we? On the day they announced that they wanted to suspend our partnership. It was always going to be 3 goals.
Absolutely written. Newcastle. God, I think this is going to be tough, mate.
It's going to be tough. I mean, particularly given the fact that, in a lot of games this season against, this kind of level of opposition, we've dropped a lot of points at home. Brighton draw, Everton draw, Burnley draw, Man United draw. We've dropped a lot of points at home.
I know, but I'm always the pessimistic one and don't keep the faith, and that's why I probably don't get the money.
I always keep the faith, but you've got to be realistic. It's going to be tough.
I'll go 2-1 last minute winner for the Blues.
Mate, I was going to go 2-1 as well. I think, we've got enough about us, and, we thrive in this situation. Everyone hating us, backs against the wall, everyone wanting us to fail. That's when we thrive. Chaos on trophies, that's what we do. I'm going to go 2-1 win as well. That pretty much rounds up the preview, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in live. Thanks for getting involved in the chat. It's always a pleasure to interact with you. Thanks so much for all of the support. Please make sure you smash a like on this video. Please subscribe to the channel. We're edging closer towards that 400 mark. So if you're not subscribed, please do subscribe. If you're watching this back and you aren't subscribed either, please press that subscribe button. It really helps us out. If you could spread the word as well, we'd be very, very grateful. George, thanks for your time as always, mate. Enjoyed chatting all things Chelsea. Plenty to talk about as always. Guys, enjoy your Friday night, enjoy your weekend, and we'll catch you on Sunday for the match reaction. Until then, up the Chelsea.